I'm Jordan Belfort, and this is Sales School. All right, so if you're a business owner, do not let QuickBooks and spreadsheets slow you down anymore. Now is the time to upgrade to NetSuite by Oracle, the world's #1 cloud-based business system. NetSuite gives you the visibility and control over your financials, inventory, and more. Schedule your free product tour right now at netsuite.com/school. Your tritonal closing pattern, okay? The reason I call it a tritonal closing pattern is it sounds freaking cool. No, it's because that every time you close, what I always say is I want you to go into a soft close using your tritonal closing pattern. What that means is that you're taking 3 tonalities and you're essentially collapsing them in from one to the next to the next. And when you do it the right way, it sounds awesome. I can't tell you how many times I would be in the boardroom of Stratton, especially in the early days, and I'd be walking around and I would be coaching kids through their sales. I'd be on the phone, they'd like wave, they hold up their hand like, and say, come here, I'm close, I got the guy really close. And all I would do is I would see where they were, and I'd create a little loop based on what I heard. I loop them back and give them enough lines to create a bit more certainty for the 3 tens, and then I would coach them through this tritonal closing pattern and have this soft landing into a closer. Does that sound fair enough? And I can't tell you how many times, like countless times, the guy would buy. And they used to call, sprinkle fairy dust. I said, JB, can you sprinkle some fairy dust on us? Fairy dust means I'd walk over and just say a few words and the guy would buy. Well, it wasn't fairy dust. It was a very specific strategy. And it had to do with running a loop and then going into this tritonal closing pattern. So let me go through it right now. The tritonal closing pattern consists of 3 tonalities. It's absolute certainty, into utter sincerity, into the reasonable man. Those are 3 distinct and very different tonalities that when said together in this order, absolute certainty, into utter sincerity, into the reasonable man. And when you do that the right way, it sounds beautiful. It allows someone to just say, you know what? Fine, I'll do it. Now, again, it's not like this is going to work. You're just going to use this closing pattern and someone just buys from you. No. It's all the work that you've done before the tritonal closing pattern. The tritonal closing. What did I say? Triclonal? Who goes? It's early in the morning, guys. Tritonal closing pattern. It's what you did before that created that massive certainty, both logically and emotionally, and it just sort of pushed them over the edge. You made it easy for them to say yes. That's what's going on. So watch. Here are the words you're going to use. You should have this in front of you, okay? Jim, believe me. Okay, watch. You give me one shot, Jim, and believe me, you're going to be very, very impressed. Sound fair enough? Let's do it again. Jim, you give me one shot and believe me, you're going to be very, very impressed. Sound fair enough? Let's break it down. Jim, you give me one shot. What's that? That's certainty. Jim, you give me one shot. You're talking, Jim, just give me one shot. Not, Jim, just give me one shot. Jim, give me one shot and believe me, you'll be very, very impressed. Sound good? Whoa, no, get out. Well, Jim, you give me one shot and believe me, you'll be very impressed. Does that sound fair? Oh, no, God, click, goodbye. That will be certainty into certainty into certainty. Jim, you give me one shot and believe me, you're going to be really, really impressed. Does that sound fair enough? I'm like, goodbye, click. No, they'll never buy from you. I've heard people say, never say the word believe me, because if you say the word believe me, then, so I shouldn't have believed everything. That's nonsensical. If you say the word believe me, like, Jim, you believe me, yeah, then you sound like an idiot. But you say, Jim, and believe me, with a tone of utter sincerity. So watch, Jim, you give me one shot, that's certainty. Jim, you give me one shot, and believe me, that's utter sincerity. Jim, you give me one shot and believe me, you're going to be very, very impressed. That's utter sincerity. You're going to be very, very impressed. And then I say, sound fair enough? That's called the reasonable man tone. Sound fair enough? Sound good? And the words they're hearing, always remember, what's the unspoken words? What have you implied with your tonality? Sound fair enough? What you're saying is, I'm reasonable, you're reasonable, so sound fair enough. Come on, it's a fair deal, right? Sound square, Jim? Makes sense? Sound good? Does that sound, Jim, does that sound fair enough? Sometimes in the end, when I'm on my third loop, but I don't always say sound fair. I say, does that sound fair enough, Jim? Come on, let's be real here. You know it does. I'm reasonable, you're reasonable. That's called the reasonable man tone. So watch. Jim, you give me one shot. That's certainty. Jim, you give me one shot. All I'm asking for is this. If you give me one shot, and then watch let me show it to you graphically here. Watch. So imagine I have a graph here. I'll flip the page easier. Watch. Jim, you're crescendo. You give me one shot, and you hit your peak. You give me one shot, that's your peak. That's peak certainty. You give me one shot, and believe me, you're going to be very, very impressed. Sound fair enough? And you'll level off. Sound fair enough? You give me one shot, and believe me. So you're almost like coming in you're like a plane. Sound fair enough? And you come like, the plane, when it lands, then the nose pops. Sound fair enough? Like, you give me one shot, and believe me, you'll be very, very impressed. Sound fair enough? Look at it like that. Do you know that every morning, so I gave 2 meetings a day, right? 2 meetings a day. That was how I trained in strategy. Every day for 5 years, right? Every morning, I would pass around the microphone, and a lot of times it would just be on this tritonal closing pattern. Every single person had to be able to say it perfectly, or you got like tarred and feathered. That was the olden days, right? People would throw things at you, they yell at you, right? And every guy had to take them, I say, give me one shot, and believe me, you'll be very, very impressed. Sound fair enough? I want you to be able to say that in your sleep. All 3 of those tonalities. Jim, you give me, all I'm asking for is this, Jim. You give me one shot, and believe me, the only problem you'll have is I didn't call you 6 months ago and get you started then. Does that sound fair enough? That's just another version. So the words can change, and you'll notice when you get into the scripting portions, we really start showing you all the different ways that you could ask for the order. The words might change a bit. You're not going to always say, give me one shot. I'm just use that as an example. There's 1,000 ways that you can say the same thing, but the tonalities always remain the same. Jim, you give me one shot, and believe me, your wife will be kissing you when she walks through the door. Does that sound fair enough? Does that sound good? 3 tonalities used together create the tritonal closing pattern. Remember, you don't close a sale with pressure. That's not the way this works. It's not a high pressure sale. People don't, listen, nowadays especially, all right? In the olden days, people didn't have smartphones, and I guess you could take advantage of them with, pressure and hype and bullshit. The straight line is not based on hype and bullshit. The straight line is based on what? Creating an airtight logical case. So like you're saying, it just makes so much sense. Yeah, it's like the thesis, you're right. What you're saying is correct. My product, my service, it's the best one out there. It's perfectly matched to what you need. It's going to resolve your pain, make you feel back in control of your life again. Right? That's the law. You're making that case. And then you're saying, and just believe me, you're going to be really glad you did this. Does that sound fair enough? And then you come in for that soft landing. Sound good? Make sense? Great. Let's get started. Simple as that, guys. So if you're saying, wow, that sounds really easy. Yeah, it's supposed to be easy. The straight line is not hard to learn. It's very easy to become good enough at this so you can start closing at a really high level straight away. When you hit that ground, like, the first day you're going to hit the ground running, I want you guys out there breaking records. That's the sort of training you're getting. But what happens is, as you get really proficient at the straight line, and you start getting to that point where you truly can close anyone who's closable. But when you're at that high level of straight line proficiency, it's life-changing for you. I'm telling you, you're going to go out there, be a top producer in your field. And when you're a top producer, what that really means is that you have the ability to define your life. You can make your life exactly the way you want. It's far beyond just money. Not only will you make the money that you want, you'll get the respect that you deserve. You'll be able to shape the world and your existence into the way that you want it. Just remember, always use this ethically. Don't be an asshole about this, right? But you're learning a very powerful system of persuasion, of influence, and negotiation.